Cold, frigid, desolate. The wind howls over the frozen plains. It is the Ice Age. Thousands of years ago, a pack of wolves roamed the vast lands of North America, larger and stronger than the grey wolf we see today. Their bite, powerful enough to crush bone, not just kill, but dominate. But even for these creatures, time is running out. The temperature is rising, the ice is melting, the sea levels are increasing. And with this shift emerges a new competitor, the grey wolf. Slowly, the dire wolves die out. Their bones become buried beneath the layers of the earth, their legacy preserved only in fossils and fragments of ancient DNA. Fast forward to the 21st century, genetic engineering has brought the dire wolf back, free to roam the earth as it did 10,000 years ago. But what does this mean for evolution? A process that has been shaped by time immemorial. How does it challenge everything we know about evolution?
Oh my god, so dramatic.
I need to draw in people somehow. And hey, if a little howling and ice age drama does the trick,
Fair enough.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, anyways. Hello, fellow nerds. Welcome back to Solving for X, where we decode the science that shape our past, present, and future. I'm Radhika,
And I'm Nuha.
and today we will be talking about one of the most powerful forces of nature evolution.
But hey, what exactly is evolution?
Well, in simple terms, evolution is how living organisms change over time. But before we dive into topics like natural selection, mutations, dire wolves, we need to understand what the Earth looked like when there was no life.
Oh, I remember Ramit talking about how the earth was extremely hot, volcanically active, and bathed in brutal UV.
Yes, imagine Earth 4.5 billion years ago. No oxygen, no Wi Fi, not even bacteria. Just gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia, which were released from the planet's molten interior through volcanic activity.
Thanks to all that solar radiation, water molecules started breaking apart. Hydrogen, being a total drama queen, floated off into space. The oxygen stayed, reacted with methane and ammonia, and eventually, tada! We got water and carbon dioxide.
That kicked off the first ever rain. Oceans filled up, the ozone layer formed, and after about 500 million years, life appeared.
Wait, how did that even happen? Don't tell me it was aliens.
Actually, early Greeks believed that units of life called spores were brought to different planets, including Earth. This theory is called panspermia, which basically says life came from space, so you are not that far off.
But then, for a long time, it was also believed that life could originate from decaying and rotting matter, like straw, mud, etc. This was the theory of spontaneous generation.
In the 1860s, Louis Pasteur came along with his swan neck flask experiment that showed nope, life doesn't just proof into existence. He demonstrated that in a flask that was sterilized prior to the experiment, life did not originate from kill yeast. At the same time, if a similar flask was left open to air, new living organism rose from kill yeast.
Then came Oparin and Holden. They suggested that life came from abiotic molecules, meaning non living stuff like proteins, RNAs, amino acids, carbohydrates, etc.
In 1953, Stanley Miller created primitive Earth like conditions in a flask. Basically, a mini Earth in a flask. He raised the temperature up to 800 degrees Celsius by zapping it with electricity like a Thor doing chemistry, and used methane, hydrogen, ammonia, water vapors inside the flask. After a while, he noticed the formation of amino acids, thus proving apparent and Halden's theory.
In similar experiments, formation of sugars, nitrogen bases, pigments, and fats were also observed by other scientists. Even meteorite analysis showed the presence of similar compounds. All these experiments supported the theory of abiogenesis, the idea that life could have originated from non living chemical substances through natural processes. So, yeah, life might have started with lightning and a weird soup. Anyways, Radhika, have you ever thought about how life developed from that soup?
Mm. I wondered. I know we talked about basic molecules like proteins and RNA.
Yes, once those basic organic molecules formed, something called as protocells appeared.
Protocells, so just normal cells.
Kind of, but not quite. They were simple cell like structures which were precursors to actual cells. They couldn't reproduce or live independently, but they could trap molecules inside a membrane.
Oh, so they created their own mini environment?
Yes, and that was a huge deal. It meant that chemical reactions could start happening in a controlled space, which was a key step towards real life.
So when did actual living cells show up?
Over time, with the right conditions, real cells formed starting with the prokaryotes around 3.5 billion years ago. They were simple, like early bacteria,
And then evolution kicked in.
big time. Some prokaryotes learned to do photosynthesis that released oxygen into the atmosphere, something the scientists call as the oxygen revolution.
That must have changed everything.
Totally. More oxygen meant more complex life could evolve. Eventually, some cells developed internal structures like nucleus and organelles. Those are called as eukaryotes.
And eukaryotes led to multicellular organisms?
Yes, eukaryotic cells had all the tools, like organelles and flexible structures, that made complex multicellularity possible. And interestingly, it didn't just happen once. It likely evolved multiple times in different ways.
So that's how all variety of life came to be, huh?
Yup, diversity came from things like natural selection, adaptation, genetic variation, and speciation. So basically, first we have the protocells, and then the prokaryotes, then the eukaryotes, and then the eukaryotes forming the multicellular organisms. Finally, those multicellular organisms form the diverse living organisms that we know today. All these processes, like natural selection, working together, gave rise to the life we see today.
We have already mentioned why these processes are important. Now, let us talk about how these actually work. Let us start with the classic natural selection. In natural selection, genetic characteristics that are beneficial to an individual's survival are passed on through reproduction. Ah, way too technical. To understand this, let us take an example of beetles. Some beetles are green and some are brown, and all are just minding their own businesses when a bird swoops in and eats a green beetle.
Hey, why not the brown beetle? Does it not like the chocolatey flavor?
First of all, brown beetles are not M&Ms. They taste like chocolate, and second of all, that's not the point of the story. The point is that now only the brown beetles remain, and they reproduce to produce offsprings, which are also brown. So the brown color is the advantageous trait
Since it doesn't attract birds as it camouflages in its woody environment.
and is passed down to generations, thus an environmentally favored population thrives.
Oh, so it's kinda like the show Survivor. But instead of contestants getting voted off the island, organisms that don't adapt, well, They just die.
Brutal but true. That's natural selection for you. But Noha, why do these beetles come in both green and brown? Is that another mechanism?
Exactly. And it's called a genetic mutation. Basically, evolution's roll of the dice. Mutations are changes in the genetic sequence, basically changes in its DNA, and they are a main cause of diversity among organisms. Mutations can also be harmful, like sickle cell anemia or cancer, which is a type of somatic mutation.
So let's say we have a giant crowd of bacteria vibing in a petri dish, and suddenly, boom, one bacteria randomly ends up with a genetic change that lets it survive hotter temperatures. That's a mutation. If it helps it survive, it might pass on that trait. That is natural selection.
Although evolution is often slow, with one tiny mutation at a time, sometimes it hits the gas pedal and changes occur overnight. For instance, in the great tree frog of North America, an ancestor totally messed up during meiosis. Instead of splitting its chromosomes like it was supposed to, it duplicated all of them. And a whole new species just popped into existence, creating an instant speciation event.
So, yeah, sometimes evolution does take the express highway, but other times it can be totally random.
It's like trying to get ready for an event. Your mom is whipping up last minute snacks, your brother is experimenting with your makeup pouch, and your dad is pacing by the door threatening to leave everyone behind. Pure, glorious chaos.
In evolutionary terms, this chaos is called genetic drift, which is when traits become more or less common in population due to random chance.
Genetic drift usually occurs in smaller population. In a small population with many genes, any of the genes can become extinct. Consider a population of rabbits with brown fur and white fur, where white is the dominant trait. Due to genetic drift, only the brown population might remain, with all the white ones eliminated. Maybe the white rabbits fell off a cliff or became a hawk's lunch, who knows?
Wait, does that mean my candy's entire family tree could disappear just because of one unlucky picnic? Nature needs to take a chill pill.
Trust me, nature doesn't even know what a chill pill is. Oh, and for people wondering out there, Candy is the name of Radhika's pet rabbit. Anyways, so now you know what natural selection, genetic mutation, and genetic drift is. But have you ever heard the story of Darwin's finches?
Oh, is that a boy band?
Oh god, somebody please take her away. No, but seriously, Darwin's finches or the Galapagos finches are a group of birds located in the Pacific Ocean of South America.
Why are we talking about birds now?
Hold your horses, all in good evolutionary time. These finches live on different islands in the Galapagos archipelago, and because they're separated by water, they cannot interbreed. Over millions of years, each group evolved differently depending on the food available on their island.
Oh, like natural selection in action?
Exactly. One island might have hard seeds, so birds there evolved big, blunt beaks to crack them open. Another might have lots of cacti, so the finches got long and thin so they could reach inside. Others adapted medium sized beaks to catch insects. This process, where species form because they're physically separated, is called as allopatric speciation.
And speciation is how a new kind of plant or animal species is created. Remember the great tree frog?
Yep, that was instant speciation. So there are many types of speciation like allopatric, sympatric, peripatric, and parapatric.
Ah, that's too much for today. So instead, let's talk about evolution's greatest creations.
Yeah, let's start with something ancient but totally epic: photosynthesis. Cyanobacteria. Oh, and fun fact, cyanobacteria were earlier called as blue green algae, but they're not actually algae. Anyways, cyanobacteria invented it. And the next thing you know, the earth is filled with oxygen.
Right. Before that, Earth was like one big suffocating rock.
No oxygen, no us. And then you have got flying insects, birds, bats, all evolving flights separately. Convergent evolution is wild.
Insects were the first to evolve flight over 350 million years ago. Birds, as descendants of feathered dinosaurs, have a unique wing structure supported by fused bones and a keeled sternum for powerful flights.
Pterosaurs, which are extinct flying reptiles, used an elongated fourth digit, basically a fourth finger, for wing support. While bats develop membranes supported by their arm and elongated fingers, the evolution of feathers, which was initially for insulation or display, later co opted for flight. This illustrates key evolutionary mechanisms like exaptation and natural selection.
Meanwhile, tardigrades, also known as water bears, evolved to survive extreme conditions including radiation, dehydration, and even the vacuum of space. They survive everything.
I know they have the sugar trehalose to prevent cell damage, and they have these special proteins called as damage suppressors that protects their DNA from the damage caused by radiation and more oxygen reactive species.
We are over here needing sunscreen and snack every 2 hours, and they are chilling in space.
And then there's us humans with our giant drama filled brains, which underwent rapid expansion due to selective pressures for social cooperation, tool use, and language.
Don't forget about FOXP2, the gene that help us speak, and HAR1, which help us sculpt our fancy brains.
All that evolution just so we could invent memes and argue on the internet. What a waste.
True, but here's the twist. Now that evolution gave us big brains, we are using them to play with evolution itself. Like de extension.
Oh, yeah, like bringing back the extinct species using ancient DNA. It's literally us trying to reverse time with science.
We have gone from survive the ice age to let's bring back the woolly mammoth. Because we can.
It's kind of poetic though. Evolution gave us the tools, and now we are deciding what the future of life looks like. But we have got to be careful. We are rewriting nature's script.
Totally. Just because we can resurrect a dire wolf doesn't mean we should do it without thinking about the bigger picture.
So basically, evolution ran the show for billions of years. And now we are stepping in as co writers. Let's not mess up the plot. Anyways, I've been hearing a lot about de extinction lately. How exactly does it work?
De extension is basically the process of bringing back the extinct species. But it is not as simple as just cloning them, it involves advanced science and technology.
Cloning is just copy pasting, right? So why can we not clone the species back?
Well, cloning is one method. Another method is genetic engineering. Scientists can take DNA from fossils of extinct species and modify the genes of a closely related species to reflect traits from the extinct one.
So they use the fossil DNA as an instruction manual.
Kinda, they extract ancient DNA from things like bones or teeth. It is a huge challenge because DNA is often fragmented and deteriorated, but they can still find enough to work with. Once they have the DNA, they can use gene editing tools like CRISPR to tweak the genes of a closely related species.
It's like creating a hybrid, right? But with traits from an extinct animal. It's like if a grey wolf went on ancient DNA makeover and came out saying, check out my new prehistoric jawline and winter ready fur. And then it struts around the forest like, I'm not your average wolf. I'm vintage.
And the scientists are like mad stylists in a lab, snipping genes here and there. Let's giving some Ice Age flair and just a hint of direwolf drama.
Honestly, I'd watch that reality show. Next up on wolf transformation, meet Khaleesi, the pup who thinks she's royalty and part extinct.
And don't forget about Romulus and Remus, the sibling with serious alpha energy and 13,000-year-old vibes.
Do they howl in Latin too?
Probably at this point, anything's possible. Just imagine them sitting in a snowstorm being dramatic. I was born in the wrong millennium.
Okay, it's way more dramatic than I thought.
It really is. Who knew biology came with plot twist, ancient DNA, and wolves with identity crisis?
While those ancient adaptations look really cool, here's the plot twist: evolution is never done.
Evolution is not a thing of the past. It's happening all around us right now, like antibiotic resistant bacteria.
Bacteria evolve quickly, and when they're exposed to antibiotics, some may survive due to random mutations. One classic example is MRSA, which stands for methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. It's super tough to treat because it has basically built a defense wall against many common antibiotics.
The scary part, these surviving bacteria reproduce, passing on resistant traits. Over time, antibiotics become less effective.
Then there's climate change. As global temperatures and weather patterns shift, many species are evolving in real time to cope.
Like the tawny owl in Europe. These birds are changing their feather color over generations to blend into snowless winters.
Some plants have started flowering earlier just to match the new seasons because apparently nature sets its own calendar.
Last but not the least is artificial selection, in which humans selectively breed animals or plants with desirable traits, shaping their evolution.
You want a fluffy lapdog? Boom, selective breeding from wolves. You want corn the size of your face? Thank ancient farmers and their genius crop hacks.
While plants like teosinte were selectively bred to become modern maize with bigger, more edible parts.
So, whether it's beetles, owls, frogs, or wolves, evolution is constantly at work, shaping life in incredible ways.
With this, we are finally at the end of today's episode titled Tracing Life, the Story of Evolution. Noha, can we please have a quick summary of today's event?
Sure, we started off our journey with a quick description of the Earth 4.5 billion years ago. We looked at theories of how life came into being, like panspermia and spontaneous generation, and then talked about how eukaryotes developed from protocells. Then we discussed the mechanisms of evolution like natural selection, genetic mutations, genetic drift, and speciation, using the example of beetles, finches, rabbits, and the great tree frog, to talk about how the multicellular organisms evolved to form the diverse creatures we see today. We also touched on some evolutionary marvels like the evolution of light and of the human brain. And finally, we mentioned how evolution is a dynamic process that still shapes the world today.
Thank you, dear listeners, for exploring with us. And before you go, we would like to mention that Solving for X is always looking for you to write to us. Whether you have questions about today's topic or ideas for future episode, we want to hear it all.
You can drop us an email at solving4.x.official@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to address your concerns in the next episodes and maybe even give you a shout out. Oh, and speaking of shout outs, a huge congratulations to our fellow podcaster Alia for her amazing performance in the ICSE board exams.
Keep shining, Alia, and to our all listeners, stay tuned. The next episode is going to be quite explosive.
And that treat that was mentioned in the last app, well, that is going to be a very special episode with a very special guest. Hopefully, sometime soon. Anyways, this is Duha
And Radhika,
heading into hibernation. Until next time.